Hello Year 4, and today is Monday the 25th of January, and this is our learning journey lesson. Okay, so today we're going to start looking at the digestive system. So I'm going to take you through these slides. You will have to pause in places so you can make notes, so you'll be able to do the activity afterwards. Okay, so I'll explain more as we go through. Right, so we're going to describe how the digestion system works in humans, and we're going to find out what the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, the esophagus, stomach and intestine do to help us digest our food. And we're going to know the order of our digestive system, so what happens first, next and so on. Okay, obviously this is going to help us understand our learning journey question a bit more, because we want to find out what happens to food, how we digest food. So what you're going to be doing is you are going to make an information poster to tell people what happens to their food once it enters their mouths. Okay, so we'll come back to this afterwards. This is just to give you an idea of what you need to pause and make notes about. So your poster will need to include the following words. So the digestive system, because that's what we're going to be writing about. The mouth, so we want to look for, when we find out what the mouth does, what part the mouth plays in the digestive system. The tongue, the teeth, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestine and the food. Okay, so you might want to just pause it now to make note of these words, so when we come across them in the slides you can pause and then make your notes about those words. Okay, so if you pause that now just to make a note. Right, let's start them. So, first of all, in this lesson, we're going to be learning about the digestion. I'm in trouble with that word. Digestion in humans, and digestion is a scientific way of describing how we break down our food. Okay, so that's the scientific way of how we break down our food. So once the food goes in our mouths, the whole digestion process begins. And it's how that food is broken down. It describes everything that happens to our food once it enters our mouths. Okay, so you might have wanted to just pause there to make a couple of notes for your poster. So, to start with, the digestive system starts in our mouths. Now, which of these sentences would you use to describe the tongue? Which one would you use to describe the mouth? And which one would you use to describe the teeth? So this is all part of our digestive process. So which one? Crush the food into smaller pieces. Do you think that's the tongue, the mouth, or the teeth? Moves food around and allows you to swallow and taste food. Again, is that the tongue, the mouth, or the teeth? Digestion begins here. This is where food is broken down by chewing. Would that describe the tongue, the mouth, or the teeth? So have a look, and which ones would you match to tongue, mouth, and teeth? Okay, that's right. If you said A, crush the food into smaller pieces, is teeth, then you would be correct. So teeth and A. B then, moves food around and allows you to swallow and taste food. That will be tongue. So tongue and B match. Okay, because we use our tongue is how we taste our food. All our taste buds are on our tongue, aren't they? And C leaves mouth, doesn't it? This is where digestion begins here. This is where the food is broken down by chewing, by the teeth and the tongue. Okay, so that is the beginning of the digestive system. This is what happens first of all. Food goes in and then our tongue, mouth and teeth deal with the food. Right, so let's move on. Right, so once the food is swallowed, then it leaves the mouth, so this area here, and it continues through our digestive system. So have a good look at this part and see if you can identify any of these parts of our digestive system. Put your teeth in, Mrs. Wilson. Have a good look. So there's arrows pointing. What do you think? I'll give you a moment to think about that, and then we'll reveal the arrows. Okay, so first off then, so here is your mouth. So it swallows and it goes down this tube, which is called the esophagus. Okay, so this is your esophagus, this big long tube. And the esophagus takes the food down to where, do you think? That's right, your stomach. Okay, so that's your stomach under there. We've also got, you can see the liver. The liver is this big body part here, and that does play a part as well, but we're not going to go into that today. So food in the mouth gets chewed up into smaller pieces, swallowed, goes down the esophagus, into the stomach, and then what do you think happens to it? Goes through the large intestine, so all this wiggly thing here looks like sausages. These are your intestines or intestines. And then from the large intestines it goes into the small intestines. Okay. Now bonus points for anybody who could give me any interesting facts about the intestines. Right, so you might want to pause there, just make a note of the order. Okay, so this is going to go into detail about what each part does. So when you swallow your food, it enters your esophagus, so the big long tube, and the esophagus connects your mouth to your stomach. Okay, so that is the esophagus. It connects your mouth to your stomach. Okay, so again, you might want to make note of that. Right, now there are some demonstrations here, okay, that if you are allowed to do, then it might be, you might be allowed to have a go at doing some of these things, and you could video yourself doing it, upload it to Dojo, but I know what it's like as a parent, so please don't feel that you have to do this, but make sure you ask parents first if you're going to try any of these. So your food doesn't just drop down your esophagus. There are muscles in the esophagus and they squeeze the food down. So it's a little bit like a tube of toothpaste. So if you squeeze the tube behind the toothpaste, okay, so if you squeeze where it's empty a bit, the toothpaste is forced along the tube and out the other side. Okay, so if I was to get some toothpaste out, I would squeeze this and it forces it down and out the other side. And I wouldn't try this, but that's also why you can still swallow your food if you are upside down. It doesn't just drop down that tube that connects to your stomach, it is squeezed with muscles. Oh, I'm just going to go back there. Let's flip forward. Okay, so you might want to just make a note that your esophagus has got muscles which squeeze the food down into your stomach. Okay, and if you want to have a go at squeezing some toothpaste, if you're allowed, then you can see a bit what that might feel like. Okay, another, so the next, so from the esophagus, yep, it goes down into the stomach. So after the esophagus, your food enters your stomach. Your stomach is like a large sack which churns your food, and it's got strong acid in. Okay, so sometimes, don't know if any of you have had it, but sometimes you get like a bit of indigestion. It feels a bit hot in your chest. That is, that acid in your stomach is leaking into your esophagus. Acid indigestion. I get that sometimes, especially if I've eaten something spicy maybe. My acid goes into overdrive and then comes up into that esophagus and you can feel it burning a bit. Anyway, so that's the job of the stomach. It's got the strong acid in, which helps break down the food. And again, there's another little experiment that you could do, obviously if you're allowed. So Coca-Cola has acid in it. If you mix that with bread in a sealed bag and mix it up a bit, you can see how the stomach works. Okay, so this would be recreating a stomach. So it's like a large sack with acid in, which breaks down your food. Okay, so then from there, so we've gone the mouth, the esophagus, down into the stomach. So now we are going to go to the intestines. So after the stomach, your food enters your intestines. Your small intestine breaks down your food even more, and it is here where nutrients, so all the good stuff in your food, is absorbed through the walls of the intestines into your blood. The large intestine then lets water be absorbed through its walls and back into your body. Okay, so the small is where all the goodness out of your food, all the nutrients, all the vitamins that we eat, that all comes out of the food and is absorbed through the intestines and will go into your blood to do good things and help your body. And then the large lets water be absorbed to go back into your body. And actually a pair of tights can show how the intestine works. So as if you was to put something in there, let's have a look, no, I'll go back, with wet, and you squeezed it, you would have all the solid stuff and then you'd have all the liquidy stuff coming out. Okay, so just to recap and think to yourself now, where does the food first start? That's right, so it goes into your mouth, where your teeth and your tongue move it around, chew it up smaller. Then where does it go next? That's right, it goes into the esophagus, so that's that tube that connects your mouth to your stomach. And that's got muscles in which will squeeze the food down. So then once it leaves the esophagus, it goes into your stomach. That's where all the acid breaks the food down even further. And then from your stomach, it will go into, that's right, your intestines. And that's where all the goodness that your body needs is absorbed through the walls of the intestines and goes into your blood and makes your body work. All the good things, all the nutrients that your body needs, it will take from there. Okay, so with all that information, I would like you please to do a poster, an information poster, telling people what happens to the food once it enters their mouths. So your poster obviously will need to include those things which hopefully you've already made a note of, and as we've gone through the slides, you've got some ideas of what each part plays, what each thing does. Okay, so I shall look forward to seeing your posters. And then tomorrow's lesson, which will be the live Zoom, we're going to look at in more detail the digestive system and what happens to the food. So we'll do that all together so we can have questions as well. Okay, so take care, Year 4, and I shall see you very soon.